Do you know what 2 years looks like? It's a long time, I'll give you that, but some things just come around again and you wonder why it took so long. This is rabbidluigi, and I've got an overdue video game matchup to do. Mario has come quite a long way since 1985 and the quirky side-scrolling NES game that revolutionised gaming forever. Since then, he's been the star of standout games on virtually every console he's been on, and has established himself as the star of gaming across the world. So basically, he's kind of a big deal. Opinions differ about what are the best Mario games, but two of my favourite and two I'm looking at today are Super Mario Sunshine and Super Mario Galaxy. These are two games that differ hugely in a wide variety of areas, and yet they both have strong claims to be the greatest Mario game ever made. So it's going to be an interesting comparison. Oh, and I'm including Super Mario Galaxy 2 in with the original Super Mario Galaxy, because it's pretty much the same game with extra things added on, like an expansion pack. So without further ado, you've waited 2 years already, let's get this thing underway. These games couldn't really be much more different in terms of gameplay. Super Mario Sunshine is the first and only Mario game so far to use FLUDD, a versatile water pump that can act as a simple water cannon, an extension to your jump, a jetpack, and an outboard motor. This leads to some very creative uses of these attachments, even if they're not all done successfully. And I've got to give Nintendo credit for not just introducing FLUDD as a gimmick and actually designing the game around it, forcing you to use FLUDD rather than saving it as a failsafe. Also, the levels are a welcome breath of fresh air. Granted, some of them are very similar, like the two beach levels, but they work very well in the setting it's given, a tropical holiday resort. However, you could argue that the levels within Sunshine are somewhat formulaic. In each location, there's one Shadow Mario level, at least one secret level, at least one red coin level, and I swear to God if I see Gooper Blooper in one more level, I'm gonna ram that stupid court where the sun doesn't shine. I see the Super Mario Galaxy games as an update to Super Mario 64. The physics engine is refined, the controls are tightened up, and it's given an almighty lick of paint with the new setting of outer space. It doesn't have the big revolutionary game element like FLUDD, but it's more of a case of lots of little things like the variable gravity, wonderful power-ups, and the spin jump that add up to make a big difference overall. The levels aren't quite as open world as in Sunshine and could almost be considered linear at some points, but they are just so much fun to play through. Each level feels different from the last, with a few exceptions, and each uses a different way of playing the game with the different power-ups and the use of the comets for an extra challenge. And while Super Mario Galaxy 2 didn't really add a lot, I have to give it a bunch of points for bringing back Yoshi in such a way that completely overwhelms Yoshi from Sunshine. Really, these games play very differently, and it's a case of the wide variety of Sunshine versus the solid and very successful gameplay of Galaxy. I'm going to give this one to Galaxy as it just seems better rounded. Sunshine trod a lot of new ground, but Galaxy just feels a little bit sharper. One of the easiest examples I can give is the numerous glitches you can find and exploit in Sunshine, and while the physics engine is tons of fun, Super Mario Galaxy just feels like a better overall gameplay experience. Let's be honest here, outside of the Mario RPGs, Mario games usually have pretty appalling stories. This is mostly down to the fact that Mario games rely on gameplay more than anything else. But I've got a category here that needs filling, so here we go. Rather than succumbing to the Mario norm and using the cliche of Peach being kidnapped by Bowser and Mario going off to rescue her, a story that has been used more times than I can be bothered to count, Super Mario Sunshine sees Mario and friends going on holiday to the tropical destination of Isle Delfino. As soon as Mario sets foot on the runway tarmac, he's seized by police and accused of polluting the island with painty gloopy stuff. He's forced to clean the island and bring back the Shine Sprites to the Shine Gate in Delfino Plaza. Peach gets kidnapped along the way by Bowser Jr., at which point the game descends back into the Mario template. Unfortunately, Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 kind of cancel each other out. The first game sees Bowser kidnap Peach, big shock I know, but this time in a display that can only be described as cinematic gold. Mario then meets up with the mysterious Rosalina who takes him to a comet observatory, where Mario then carries out his usual Mario business. Super Mario Galaxy 2 though is almost exactly the same, except instead of the intriguing character of Rosalina, we're given the fat purple Luma with nowhere near the personality that Rosalina had. People have stated that Super Mario Galaxy 2 is simply the overflow of ideas that Nintendo had for levels and gameplay elements, and it shows, because they clearly didn't give a shit about the story. Point to Sunshine. There's not really much of a contest here, So it's Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2, basically. This is where the definition of iconic status starts to become a little hazy. What I'm looking at here is how each game was seen by the general public, which game is seen as the better by the rest of the world, and on that basis, this section belongs to the Galaxy games. The biggest testament for Super Mario Galaxy is the fact that it spawned an equally commercially successful sequel. The lowest respectable score I could find for Super Mario Galaxy was 9.5 out of 10, and the lowest for Super Mario Galaxy 2 was 92.5%. These are two games that were met with a huge amount of praise and not too many can find glaring technical faults in them. While Super Mario Sunshine was met with a great amount of admiration, it didn't quite receive the same lofty levels as the Galaxy games. The Galaxy games are seen by the vast majority of Mario games as two cracking games, while Sunshine is more of a game that splits fan opinion. One of the biggest and most important parts of any 3D Mario game is the main hub world. It's all fine and dandy having all these incredible levels, but if you've got nothing to link them together, you're going to have a very boring and frustrating gaming experience. Thankfully, both Sunshine and the Galaxies have pretty good hub worlds. Sunshine's takes the form of Delfino Plaza, where you can leap around rooftops and explore the holiday destination you've got in front of you. It's a little on the small side, but I like how it links the levels together, through graffiti or more unusual means like staring at the sun. Remember kids, if you stare at the sun long enough, you'll be transported to a magical land with shell people and a giant eel with really bad teeth. The Galaxy games, once again, are a mixed bag. Galaxy 1 has the giant multi-layered Comet Observatory, where the game's levels are separated out into the separate rooms like the kitchen or the bedroom. It's not quite as well designed as Super Mario Sunshine, as it's literally a giant spaceship with access points to different points in space, but I admire the idea. However, because we're counting Super Mario Galaxy 1 with 2, the point has to go to Sunshine because Galaxy 2 has a very dull hub world. It's small, devoid of anything truly interesting, and all the levels are accessed through one part of it. The important thing you have to remember when looking at these two games is the fact that the Super Mario series is all about the joys of gameplay. Hence, like I said earlier, that the stories in the main series isn't hugely important. For a Mario game to be successful, it needs to be a game that sucks you in and absorbs hours of your life through its addictive gameplay, and annoyingly from my standpoint, both games manage to do this very well. The decider is that N-word, nostalgia. Super Mario Sunshine has this to some extent with the rebirth of Yoshi in a 3D environment, but the Super Mario Galaxy games have just so many moments where you have to stop and smile, where you acknowledge the effort that Nintendo put in. It's something that's more evident in the music, but there are a lot of short references to previous games and it feels wonderful finding them. When Nintendo made Super Mario Sunshine, I think they knew that they couldn't overhaul such a momentous game like Super Mario 64. They knew that Super Mario 64 was a damn good game, and that in order to make a better game, they couldn't just improve on what was already there. Therefore, they took a sidestep and made a game that introduces new elements, avoiding the comparisons to Super Mario 64 entirely because it's a completely different game. 5 years later, with better technology at their disposal and a brand new console, Nintendo decided to have a go at trying to dethrone Super Mario 64 by simply making a better game. And the best thing? They succeeded. They gave the fans of Super Mario 64 a game that focused on the joys of simple platforming that followed Mario throughout history. Super Mario Galaxy might not have been the exceedingly clever and revolutionary game that Super Mario Sunshine is, but it's built on what made Super Mario 64 one of the greatest and most important games of all time. People have argued that Super Mario 64 is definitely the best Mario game of all time, but I think that title has to belong to Super Mario Galaxy. This has been rabbidluigi, and while I do think Super Mario Galaxy is the greatest Mario game of all time, I still think that Super Mario Galaxy 2 is nothing more than a glorified expansion pack. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, I'd be very grateful if you could go ahead and give it a like. I mean, every time you do, a new adorable puppy is born, so that's something to think about. Of course, if you want to see more of that stuff, the videos, not the puppies, then I've got a vast selection here. By which I mean 3 links in a t-shirt shop, but hey, it's a t-shirt shop, I think they sell t-shirts there. You can go find out and report back to me on that one. This is critical information that the world has to know.